Now for our second presentation, Canadian Wood Pellets, Responsible, Renewable, Clean Energy. We invite Jason Fisher of Pinnacle Renewable Energy, where he's a VP of Strategic Partnerships and Corporate Responsibility. Jason is a professional forester and a lawyer with more than 2 decades experience working in senior roles in industry and in the British Columbia government. Take it away, Jason.
Thank you very much, Gord. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me, Gord? I'm sure you can. I will jump to my first slide here, and I only have about 90 slides to go through in the next 15 minutes, so I'll try and do that very quickly. No, I'm kidding. The purpose of my conversation with you today is really to give you a framework to put all the other information that you're going to be hearing today into. I'll be trying to reference back where I can to the things that we've already heard from Vaughn, from Minister Donaldson, and from Dr. Strauss. And really, this is a story of how we spent our summer vacation. The first how should we talk to people about wood pellets? I think that, you know, that if we learned anything from Dr. Strauss, we've learned that there is a ton of information out there that speaks to the benefit that wood pellets provide, both to the people who consume the wood pellets, but to the world in general. And sometimes that can create a lot of noise that it's hard to get a message through. So I'm going to try and get you, that framework, a few points that when you're thinking about wood pellets, about how to communicate about wood pellets, it'll help you understand maybe how to answer some of the people who aren't as familiar as most of the participants in this session are about, you know, why we use wood pellets and what the impact is of using them. And really, I think that we've heard about how our value proposition is evolving, and now how we need to do a better job of communicating with the public, government, and other sectors if we want to get to that policy outcome that Dr. Strauss talked about in his presentation. And if I was to sum up what wood pellets do, the opportunity that it presents to the world is that we turn local waste into a global solution. And we can talk about that a little bit more. I'll try to get through this as quick as I can so that we have time for questions and conversations after, and I can even maybe provide some more insight on the old growth question that was asked to Dr. Strauss. So why use woody biomass for energy? It's really about dealing with the waste issue. When we look back at the 30-year history of wood pellets in British Columbia, it was about looking at those piles of sawdust and shavings that were accumulating at mills and that were burned in beehive burners, like you see in the top picture on the right. In 2003, a serious effort was made to get rid of those beehive burners in British Columbia. That allowed for an increased or demanded an increased expansion of the wood pellet sector in British Columbia, as that fiber had to go somewhere else, or otherwise the sawmills would find themselves drowning in it and unable to operate. But it's not just about getting rid of the waste on the ground, it's about getting rid of the waste out of the air. Whenever you have combustion of wood in an uncontrolled environment, you're going to get the production of PM2.5 black carbon, which is another, in addition to the carbon that's generated, is another pollutant that can be generated from the combustion of wood. And so, you know, taking wood out of an open burning environment through either a beehive burner or through the piles like you see at the bottom is a good solution for the people living close to sawmills, living at that rural-urban interface, and that's only increasing as we see more efforts put in to reduce fire risk around communities and address some of those climate change issues that we've already heard about this morning. And like Minister Donaldson talked about, it's about putting carbon and people to work. When we take that carbon out of the sawmills, out of the piles, and we put it into wood pellets, it's doing real work in replacing fossil fuels, but it's also putting people to work. It's keeping contractors and loggers working. It's providing additional income to sawmills. It's providing the income to the workers in the pellet plants themselves and all along the supply chain. And that activity generally takes place in largely rural areas where the impact is most significantly felt. Why make pellets out of woody biomass? The next kind of question that we get asked, what's special about pellets? And really, this is a logistics issue, as many of us know. It's about getting water out. It's about getting the particles down to uniform size. It's about making them efficient to ship, easy to handle, and to provide predictable, consistent performance. And when I get to the end of my presentation and talk about the future of pellets, I believe that, you know, this predictable, consistent performance of wood pellets means that it's not just about bioenergy, but it's about a whole host of bioproducts that wood pellets can become the feedstock for. Why use Canadian wood pellets? And this to me is the most important part of the presentation. Doug Donaldson talked about the role of wood pellets in improving forest management, but having a strong, strategic, sustainable view of the forest asset itself, which we get in Canada from the publicly regulated forests, gives us that confidence when we get that material that we can meet the requirements through the Sustainable Biomass Program or other schemes to ensure that the biomass that goes into our pellets is sustainable. In addition to the regulatory background that underlies those the management practices, we have a strong professional management regime across the country of professional foresters. You'll see on the top right there, we've got the Association of BC Professional Foresters of British Columbia, the Ontario Professional Foresters Association, the College of Alberta Professional Foresters, and the Quebec Association, as well as just some examples of the people who are actually making the decisions on the ground to ensure that that growing supply of trees exceeds the amount that's taken off for lumber, and then when the leftovers from the lumber are taken by us to turn into wood pellets, that the carbon sequestration continues to be maintained or grown through proper forest management. And as also been mentioned by Vaughn, the confidence of third-party certification is important. Not only are our pellets third-party certified, but the forests in Canada are third-party certified. So you'll see on the far left-hand column of that the chart on the bottom right, Canada by miles exceeds any other jurisdiction for the amount of forests under third-party sustainable management certification. And why ship wood pellets around the world? I think this is a question that we're starting to ask ourselves more and more. And again, it came up in Dr. Strauss's presentation as well. So I don't think it's anyone's first choice to put pellets on boats and send them around the world, but that is where the markets are, because North America is lagging behind many other jurisdictions when it comes to recognizing and confronting climate change. The European and Asian power suppliers see biomass as a critical catalyst for a low carbon future. You can see from the quotes on the right, Drax, one of the largest consumers in the UK, sustainably sourced forest biomass is at the heart of our purpose, enabling a zero carbon, lower cost energy future. And the Sumitomo Corporation in Japan says our company believes that biomass fuel is an important technology as the world transitions away from fossil fuels and toward renewable energy sources. And so I think it's important to recognize that this is part of the solution. It's not the solution in itself, using woody biomass. And what woody biomass does in the form of wood pellets, it allows for the adoption of more solar and wind energy by providing a responsive, firm, renewable energy source that can meet basic energy needs in the countries where it's being used, and allow for more of that less firm power that comes from wind and solar to be adopted as well. We talked already about climate change. I think that the slides that Dr. Strauss showed demonstrate quite seriously the facts that are underpinning our knowledge of climate change, the fact that it's coming, that it's getting worse. But these pictures that I've put up, I think, show that it's already here, and it's not something that we can put off addressing until a later date. On the left-hand side, you'll see the remains of the Spalti ice shelf. It was, until the end of August, the largest remaining ice shelf in the Arctic. And what you're looking at there is about 110 square kilometers of ice that broke away and is disintegrating, and will lead to less albedo effect in the Arctic, more absorption of solar energy by the water that's underneath it, and is just another step along the line showing that climate change is here. And of course, many of you will have seen the picture on the right from the Oregon forest fires this summer. What strikes me particularly about this picture, beyond the fact that it looks like it might be the road to hell that we're traveling on, is that these forests are not traditionally fire-dominated forests. So it's not just the inland forests that have been burning in California, Oregon, and Washington. It's the more moist coastal and river associated forests that have also been set ablaze through these fires. And so again, I think the climate change is here. Let's take action. Let's encourage those good policy decisions to take place, and let's stop debating about what's going on and just figure out what we're going to do about it. But where to from here? I know that was a bit of a dark note. I'll end on a positive note, and then we'll go to the conversation. So I think that the future is bright when it comes to pellets and biomass. I think that when we look at the future, we need to think about increased Indigenous engagement. Not only is there a huge Indigenous population that is ready and able and wanting to be more engaged in the forest sector, I think that the values that underpin our sector align very well with the notions of good management, of using the resources that are there to their best advantage, and providing jobs and opportunities where people live, and leaving the forest better than they were found. So I think that a commitment to the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People is something that this sector can get behind. There's more that we can do. I think that the pellet plant in Quebec, the Grenouille pellet plant, owned by First Nations, there is an example of what's to come in the future. Pinnacle, we have a pellet plant as well that is co-owned by First Nations. It's very exciting times as Indigenous communities, as Indigenous peoples get more say about what's done with the resources that have been part of their traditional territory. And I think that will have a big impact on how we manage forests in the future, and who we look to for partnerships to lead us into that future. New end products and new markets. I mentioned earlier that one of the advantages with wood pellets is the consistency. That's going to be important whether you're making liquid fuels, whether you're making biochemicals, or whether you're making energy. And so, rather than taking this heterogeneous bunch of wood fiber from the forest or from sawmills and turning it into to liquid fuels, you're going to be better off transporting less water, having that dried down pellet that's easy to handle, that's easy to transport, that's going to be consistent to put into these processes as they get developed. I've heard recently about interest even in 3D printing using a wood substrate, and again, taking wood pellets, turning it into the wood substrate for 3D printing. That could be something that is just around the corner. And then the last thing I want to talk about, that's changing in the sector, I think carbon capture and storage. It's more about the renewable energy sector in general, but I think that when we look at the opportunities to scrub carbon either directly out of the atmosphere or out of the emissions from plants, put them back underground, there's a long way to go, but we can start turning what's already a good carbon story into a great carbon story when we go from being below carbon to carbon negative as a sector, and I look forward to that day coming. And with that, I also want to let you know that this is just an overview of the information that we've been putting together this summer within WPAC. All that information is available through the website. I encourage you to go and read many of the articles that we've put out this summer that address some of these issues. I encourage you to engage in this conversation with each other, with me. Please reach out to me if you have questions. And I look forward to hearing your questions here today. And unfortunately, I don't have a picture of myself dressed as Robert Plant in my backyard, but I'll have to leave that to Bill. He does definitely have the advantage going into the barbecue contest coming up. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ellen to moderate any questions that have come in.
Great, thanks so much, Jason. I really enjoyed hearing about the potential of wood pellets in this fight against climate change. It's very important as we move forward that we focus on that, and I think WPAC has been doing a lot of good work in that regard. We're going to start with a few questions here. First off, do you think the industry is doing enough to get the sustainability message out to the public?
No, quite frankly, I don't. I think that we've been working really hard to make pellets, and we're doing a great job of that. There's been a big increase in the industry, but I think we need to figure out how we're going to turn this into a message that people can understand and really address their concerns. And I think it's also important that we are our own hardest markers. So we've got to be looking at ourselves and the way that we do business and make sure that that we're living up to the standards or exceeding the standards that we set for ourselves. And when we do, I think we need to do a better job of being transparent and reporting about it.
Right, absolutely. So kind of similar to that, how should we respond to negative messaging from NGOs?
I think that the way to respond to first, I don't think that the NGOs are providing negative messaging, because they're mean or because they hate pellets. I think that there really is a shared interest that we've gotta find and have around doing things better and about seizing this opportunity to address climate change before it's too late, or to minimize the impact of what we're already feeling. And so I think making sure that we've got the right information, making sure that we're communicating the right information, and making sure that we're talking about the positive aspects of what we're doing. And again, let's not just rely on our third-party certification and on the standards that we all meet in doing this. Let's talk about them more so that people understand the degree to which we are held to account already for our sustainable practices.
So we have another question. Are there currently successful examples of Indigenous bioenergy projects in remote areas involving pellets and gasifiers?
Not pellets per se. I know that there's a couple that have taken place. There's one I think that's still operational in Quadacha, but that from what an opportunity to start changing, be the change you want to see in the world, and start at home with trying to get some of these remote First Nations off of diesel fuel, particularly for their energy needs. There are Skedam First Nation is another one in BC where they've got a chipping operation that runs a combined heat and power process for them. And hopefully as they have positive results from that will inspire other groups as well. So it's not even necessarily about wood pellets. I mean, the interesting thing, we work with them so that they use the chips from their operation to put into their heating plant, but they sell the excess to us, so it helps support that operation to keep that heat and power operating in their community.
Right. Yeah. One more question. I think we have time for that. The next provincial election, I believe in BC, has been announced. So how do we reach the voters and let them know about the sustainability of pellets?
I mean, I think it's having those conversations. I think we're putting more of that information out. If you're on social media, I'm not. I'm a dinosaur. But if you're on social media, I mean, sharing that through your LinkedIn, sharing those stories through Facebook. But let's not bury people in information. Let's connect with them on values, and let's talk about what we're trying to achieve through the use of biomass and through the consumption of wood pellets.
Right, that's definitely important. One last.
Sorry, and if you are, if you want to be engaged, I mean, I think that there's lots of opportunities to take part in local debates. I'm sure the town halls will be going virtual and the debates will be going virtual, but take your questions to the candidates themselves and ask what they think about it, and ask how they would support the increased use of wood pellets, not just here, but in Canada. There could be a snap federal election around the corner too. And, it's not just the US with its 482 coal-fired power plants. Canada still consumes around 35 million tons of coal for energy purposes each year. So we've got a ways to go too.
Yeah, that's a good point. So last question, you mentioned pellets as a feedstock for bioproducts. Person's asking if you could expand upon that.
So, I mean, whenever you're looking at these bioproducts, generally they're going to be broken down either through a chemical, heat, or pressure process. And whenever you're dealing with something that requires, precise calibration to deal with it, it's nice to know that you've got a controlled amount of ash, that you've got particle sizes that are all roughly the same, that you've got a consistent moisture content, because if any of those variables change, it could change the outcome of your chemical or industrial process. And so, things are still bubbling along. We do see some liquid fuel plants that are coming online in Ontario and other places. In a previous life, I worked with a lumber company. We were looking at a liquid fuel project, and we found that wood pellets were the best. We couldn't get it commercialized, but we found that wood pellets were the best material to feed into that, because we got the best uptime and the most consistent product as a result. And it just comes from knowing that the materials coming in are uniform. We could
Okay.
all sorts. That's an entirely different session that we could have.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think we're out of time now, but for anyone, again, whose questions were not answered, feel free to email Jason or Gord or anyone else. So over to you now, Gord.
Thank you very much.
Great. Well, Jason, really appreciate your presentation, your passion for the subject, and I hope I can continue to rely on your good counsel and guidance as we put our sustainability or continue to build our sustainability messaging for WPAC.